Hi everyone. Today I'm going to share some ideas and thoughts about these watercolor markers. Well, they're kind of like a brush pen actually. They're called Mermaid markers and they are branded by Jane Davenport of the Color Institute. They're manufactured by American Crafts. And I've been a fan of Jane Davenport's art for a very long time. And so I was pretty excited when I saw that she had come out with these markers and of course thought about using them for brush lettering. And yeah, Jane was kind enough to send me some markers and I thank her so much for this and some other pens which I'll share with you another time. So basically you have watercolor in a brush pen and the bristles are they're actual bristles. So if you can see here, unlike a lot of brush pens that are solid tips, these have bristles. So they're a little bit harder to control. You can use them for watercolor. This is a deep purple. You can use them with watercolor and water as well. You can see how intense that pigment is. So I have, the colors are really cute too. I have Deep Sea, Blue Bottle, Byron Bay. I just love those names. And Jane, from being from Australia, has really made the most of kind of incorporating the idea of the ocean and the sea into her markers. So I'll just want to share with you one thing about the markers that you should know when you do get them. You can see, I'll just take one out of here. You can see that the difference between these two markers, one out of the fresh out of the package, is that they have this little green strip, and that is like common among these markers, where you just basically unscrew it and then take off that little green ring, and that keeps the ink from plunging into the chamber and dispersing, so during storage or before sale. So now that the ring is off, you just basically, you can see, I don't know if you can see that nib in there, you're going to just basically screw it into place and it will puncture the chamber, this chamber where the ink is, the barrel rather. And you just want to make sure it's screwed tightly. You can kind of hear it snap into place. Then you'll open it. Now the brush is a little bit stiff, right? So it's even sounds a little bit crunchy. But you just push on it and it does relax. Then to get the watercolor flowing, if you see the words push on two sides, this is a flexible, soft barrel that you will push on until the watercolor, and it does come out quite quickly, so you don't need to push it and push it, just a little bit. And then you can see how beautiful it is. And then you can make your swatches and so forth. So this is watercolor paper I'm using from Canson. Okay, so that's what you do to get it going. Now let's just take a quick look and then I'll show you the worksheets that I have for watercolor lettering. Look at this cute little water dispenser I have. I can't tilt it, but I'll tilt it a little bit. It has little duck feet. It actually was a little egg, I think it's an egg holder, you know, for breakfast for Easter, but I just thought it was just adorable for this, so that's what I'm using. Technically you don't need to dip into there, but I like to use the water a little bit, so I will put it here on the side. And with this, what's nice about this watercolor brush is when you squeeze it and get it going, I usually squeeze it because I want it quite saturated, and I put it on this is just a plastic bag, my little palette, plastic bag with white paper on it. So I want to make sure the color is flowing nicely. And you know, then if you're using my worksheets, you'll kind of go through the alphabet. But what I do like about these brush bristles is that they are very springy and solid, which means, I'll show you a close-up and tell you what that means. So when you have a nice brush bristles, you have this area of transition that becomes much cleaner than what it normally would be. So if your brush does not manage that curve very well, it's not a great brush. And I was pretty excited to see that these bristles on these Mermaid markers are really, really quite nice. Now it is quite a thick brush, so if you can apply as much pressure as you want for as much thickness. So let's here's the letter I, right? And then you can actually soften that up and make it much smaller. Now because it is a bigger brush tip, you will, it is harder to write smaller letters. So if I can kind of try to get some smaller letters going here, you can see they're not going to be very clean, but you can definitely get the job done. And I think kind of the best size is probably a couple inches for me. Even this size is quite nice. All right, so what is exciting about these brushes also is that I tried them out with my watercolor worksheets. If you're not familiar, I have worksheet sets on my website, KellyCreates, and these watercolor worksheets have, I think, 55 pages. So you start with individual letters, A, B, of course, A to Z, A to Z, and then you have blank practice where you have one letter, and then you can practice away just with one letter at a time on Freestyle It. So what you should know is that using these markers makes it actually really easy to use my watercolor sheets, because you don't need watercolor, you don't need another brush, you don't need to worry about any of that. You just pick up these markers and you can go. Now you can also use a regular, like I would use a round 1 or round 2 brush, paintbrush, a watercolor brush, but it has to be very springy. Otherwise you're going to struggle with the shapes of the letters. So let's take a look at another bigger shape. Let's look at the L. And these are larger than my other worksheets, and they're a different style. They're much more relaxed style. So you just follow the tracing lines, and then you can create beautiful lettering with watercolor. And watercolor lettering, I find, is a little bit more relaxed. You can be very technical like you are with the brush pen, but I find it's much more forgiving and as a medium for you to enjoy. So that's what I have to tell you today about watercolor and the Mermaid markers and my worksheets. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy trying some watercolor today.